It is generally believed that Paul was an unmarried man at least when he wrote his letters that are found in the New Testament. The odds of Paul having been married at least some point in his life is fairly high. Acts 22:3 says that Paul taught according to the perfect manner of the law of the fathers, and was zealous toward God, as ye all are this day. Marriage would have been a part of that law he was taught. He says he was a Pharisee in Acts 23:6. In Galatians 1:14, he says he was more zealous in fulfilling the requirements of his religion than other Jews of his time. Marriage was a serious issue in Judaism, and it would be difficult to take Paul seriously in these claims if he was not married at some point in life. 1 Corinthians 7:7-8 often is used to show that Paul was not married. May be true, but it does not rule out the chance Paul was a widower, as he addresses both the unmarried and widows in this passage. Which group does he identify himself with? What if Paul was married at this time? That possibility will be the focus here. As a side note, why did not Paul include Jesus along with him? Would not the passage have more meaning if he wrote, "For I would that all men were even as Jesus and myself"? Is it possible that Paul understood Jesus had a wife, so he did not include Jesus with himself? I find Paul not including Jesus here to be curious. One clue that Paul may have been married is found in 1 Corinthians 9:5. Paul writes as written in the King James Version. Have we not power to lead about a sister, a wife, as well as other apostles, and as the brethren of the Lord, and Cephas? The New American Standard Bible renders it as, do we not have a right to take along a believing wife, even as the rest of the apostles and the brothers of the Lord and Cephas? Paul seems to include himself in this statement with the word we. In other words, Paul is saying, do I not have a right to take along a believing wife, even as the rest of the apostles and the brothers of the Lord and Cephas? If Paul had a wife, this statement adds more meaning. Another possible clue that Paul was married is an odd statement in 1 Corinthians 7:29. In the King James Version, it says, but this I say, brethren, the time is short, it remaineth, that both they that have wives be as though they had none. The New American Standard renders this passage this way. But this I say, brethren, the time has been shortened, so that from now on those who have wives should be as though they had none. For those who are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Joseph Smith-inspired version of the Bible or Joseph Smith translation renders this portion a little more clearly. But I speak unto you who are called to the ministry. For this I say, brethren, the time that remaineth is but short, that ye shall be sent forth unto the ministry. Even they who have wives, shall be as though they had none, for ye are called and chosen to do the Lord's work. Paul's intention is for those who are called to the ministry, even if they have a wife, would be reclassified or act as if they are not married. For example, say someone named Janiah is called to the ministry, and he is married. For the sake of the ministry, Jonah will be considered as unmarried and as such, even though he really does have a wife. Is it possible that Paul could have done the same for himself? He really had a wife, but it was as though he had none while he preached the gospel. Some early Christians also appear to allow for this possibility. Clement of Alexandria wrote, Peter and Philip fathered children, and Philip gave his daughters in marriage. Furthermore, Paul did not hesitate to mention his companion in one of his epistles. He says in his epistle, do I not have the right to take along a sister wife, as do the other apostles? However, the other apostles, in harmony with their particular ministry, devoted themselves to preaching without any distraction. Their spouses went with them, not as wives, but as sisters, in order to minister to housewives. Is it not possible that the wife of Paul could have been included in this? If his spouse went with him not as a wife but a sister, it could account for him calling himself as unmarried while on his ministry. Ignatius also appears to have thought this, as he included Paul among the other apostles as married men. For I pray that, being found worthy of God, I may be found at their feet in the kingdom, as at the feet of Abraham, and Isaac, and Jacob, as of Joseph, and Isaiah, and the rest of the prophets, as of Peter, and Paul, and the rest of the apostles, that were married men. For they entered into these marriages not for the sake of appetite, but out of regard for the propagation of mankind. If Paul was married, it would make his statement in 1 Corinthians 11:8-12 a little easier to accept. For the man is not of the woman, but the woman of the man. Neither was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man. For this cause ought the woman to have power on her head because of the angels. Nevertheless neither is the man without the woman, neither the woman without the man, in the Lord. For as the woman is of the man, even so is the man also by the woman, but all things of God. There is no absolute proof that Paul had a wife. It simply raises the possibility that Paul could have been married when he wrote 1 Corinthians, despite the traditional view that Paul was not. Thank you for your time.